Hello and welcome to AimHi and Congress 2020. So AimHi is the Nature First curiosity-powered online school where our mission is to make world-class live learning accessible to everyone. This session is being run as part of 2020's World Congress of Science and Factual Producers, and this session is called Science in 60 Seconds, and it's about effective science communication in the age of the attention economy, the age of information overload, and the age of data. So for those of you used to seeing AimHi borders around this, this is why they're all World Congress of Science and Factual Producers. So thank you very much to the World Congress. Thank you to Paul Lewis and the rest of the editorial committee for having us on here. Some of you will be watching this on AimHi and others on the World Congress, as I said before. Either way, please interact whenever you would like to. You can check that your chat is working now by typing in your favourite crunchiness of peanut butter. Go. And just to show you, this is what the AimHi would normally look like for those who are more familiar with this. Back we go. Okay, we're seeing lots of answers come in on the different chats. So a lot of people saying smooth on AimHi. Not seeing too many favourites of peanut butter on the World Congress side. Anyway, so you might also, we're seeing a lot of smooth. So many smooth peanut butters today. We normally get a lot more crunchies. Ben Jones is saying crunchy. Nice, Ben. Okay, so you might also be watching this session played back later, in which case you obviously won't be able to interact, but you can pretend to interact. So you can just tell us your favourite. You just tell yourself your favourite crunchiness of peanut butter. Anyway, so a tiny bit on the World Congress of Science and Factual Producers, for those who are watching on AimHi. So it brings together the top minds in science broadcasting, from producers to commissioners all around the world, and guests this year include Bill Gates and Dr. Fauci, among many others. The aim is to unite a community able to bring about positive change in the science media space, and I'm very grateful to be an advisor on the editorial committee alongside running AimHi. Very briefly about AimHi as well. So as I said, AimHi is the Nature First curiosity-powered online school on a mission to make world-class live learning accessible to everyone. AimHi has been really lucky, beginning only in March, to have had support from some great organisations like the Eden Project, Education Scotland, Cambridge Zero, and so on. And we've been able to reach and help thousands of students in over 100 countries with live learning and keeping learners of all ages engaged. And we've even been distributing recordings to refugee camps. We've hosted guests like Jane Goodall and George Monbiot, and have had many more, and we have many more inspiring guests to come. We also have a new short course called How to Talk About the Climate Crisis to Anyone in a Way That Makes a Difference, which has been created to cut through the misinformation, focus on the key concepts, solutions, and leave everyone feeling empowered and ready to be a catalyst for change. Anyway, if you're on AimHi, then do check out World Congress of Science and Factual Producers after the session. And if you're on the World Congress, then do check out AimHi after the conference. Okay, so let me just switch back to her. I'm going to talk mainly as if I'm talking to the attendees of the World Congress here, so science producers and commissioners and so on. So if I keep implying that you are in the world of making science documentaries and so on, that is why. So Science in 60 Seconds is a competition about communicating in the age of information saturation. It's about grabbing and holding people's attention and learning from what succeeds and reiterates. Or at least that's what it's normally about. Now, for those who've been to World Congress before, you'll know that I normally use this session to show a load of popular memes and talk about the very current trends through those videos. I know everyone loves memes, so here's one at least. This is a horse playing jazz piano. Anyway, you get the picture. Good horse. So anyway, this year I've decided to do something a bit different, since everything is a bit different this year. I'm going to start by asking you a few questions, and I'm going to show you some things, and then I'm going to take you on a bit of a kind of tangential journey to talk about something pretty critical for all of us to consider as we journey together into the world of new media and try to bring brilliant science and factual communication with us. So I've got a question for you, and that is this. What do you, or did you, want the most from your career or work? What do you want the most from your career or work, or what did you want the most from your career or work? Byron saying this is the content we need, the jazz horse. Jazz horse is so good. Anyway, while I'm waiting for answers to come in, I'm seeing some on AimHi about making a change in the world and building experience, and these are great answers. So nowadays, young Americans, so Gen Z, rank making money as the most important thing in their careers, almost 20% more so than my generation, so millennials. Being famous is almost twice as important for them, and the importance of relationships is falling. I can see that Paul Lewis, Director of the Congress, has just said piles of money as well, which, yes, is along the same kind of theme. But yeah, and Anna is saying being interested, bring interesting topics, facts to people they did not discover before. Anna, that's such a good answer. Anyway, so according to Harvard's ongoing, many decades-long study of happiness, for almost all of us, there is nothing more important in life than strong relationships to ensure happiness, right? Also really important are connection to nature, spare time, and a sense of purpose. But it's hard to count those things, right? On the flip side, money can be counted and compared with others, and certainly we do need some of it. Even fame can be counted now in terms of followers and compared and competed over from a young age. Now, there's no real pride or glory in being superior to others, really, only in being superior to our former selves, right? Yet somehow we have become obsessed with these countable metrics for what it means to win. Anyway, we'll come back to that in a moment, but I just want to show you something first. So I'm going to show you this on the Congress thing, but actually maybe it's a bit small. I'll come back to the Congress panels in a moment. It might be just a bit easier to see this on the AimHi share. So I'll just go to AimHi and then we'll come back to the Congress one in a sec. So this shows the distribution of renowned or famous people. So in effect, society's role models from the year 1750 to the year 1850. So as you can see, like quite a lot of politicians. So I guess Napoleon would have taken up quite a lot of this space, having quite a lot of cultural influence over society in that kind of era. And yeah, they kind of dominate the landscape. Now, as you can see as well, maybe about like a quarter of this or so are your scientists, which is quite a good chunk of influence over society. And then you've got your kind of painters, composers, musicians, architects. God, I'm writing that terribly. Anyway, writers and philosophers. So you're thinkers, right? Now, what do you think happens when we move forwards by 100 years? What happens when we move forwards by 100 years, in particular to the scientists? So what do you think will happen to the kind of percentage influence over society of our scientists when we move forward 100 years to 1850 to 1950? On AimHi, they're pointing out how the most relevant sports people, 1750 to 1850, are the chess players. Yes, so good. Oh, Mary's saying hi. Hello. And this is a great answer, Cassandra, as well. Okay, Sictos, so we're seeing some responses on AimHi about saying maybe more science as we move forward 100 years. Alex is saying more scientists as we move forward 100 years. So let's go forward 100 years. 100 years, and as you can see, scientists have shrunk down significantly. The cultural influence of scientists over society has dropped off a lot. Now, so it's down from a third down to less than a quarter now. Now, what do you think will happen when we move forward another 100 years to the kind of famous people born from 1950 to now? What's going to happen when we go forward another 100 years? Let's give a moment for people to see what they think is going to happen. Okay, let's show you what's going to happen. So as we move forward another 100 years, this is what happens. This is the scientists. This is what remains. This is the cultural influence over society of individuals within the last kind of 70 years or so. So scientists, as I said, aren't even worth labeling, nor are philosophers. The landscape of influence over society has shifted enormously away from thinkers and towards celebrities. These are the people who now guide society's hopes, aspirations, and values. This reality is one of the big inspirations for setting up AimHi to expose and connect young people to strong, positive thinker role models. And it's a vital consideration for all of us as science communicators. We often find it hard to reach the big audiences, and it's not necessarily because what we're making isn't good enough. It's a global systemic problem. This is the shape of things now. I'm just going to switch back to the World Congress 1, since we're supposed to be on Congress. So this shape of society, very sadly, is kind of shown in various bodies of work, including that of Meg Wheatley, that this is the kind of trend that society tends to follow before it approaches a kind of collapse. Well, this is the direction towards collapse. So you're right that I've just seen that Danielle saying there's a big increase in arts, and that is true. So there is quite a lot of arts here, but it's mainly actors and singers and musicians, whereas film directors, I think that is, whereas the kind of painters and writers and things like that. Oh no, there's still a bit of writers, but it's dipped down significantly. Now, can we turn this around? We have to, but how? Feeding science through the influencers, maybe, or finding new ways to support and elevate the best thinker role models? I don't know, my feeling is that all of you watching this are invaluable as positive role models yourselves, especially for young people, and encouraging young people to want to be thinkers, explorers, inventors, conservationists, change makers, and encouraging people to value the things that actually protect rather than endanger life on Earth. So thank you for being these people in the world. Okay, now I want to ask you a different question. I want you all to tell me what it means to win. What does it mean to win? Give me an example. Frame it in any way you'd like. Business, school, sports, doesn't matter. What does it mean to win? By the way, those who are wondering where those studies came from, they're from the MIT Media Lab. It's called the Pantheon study. Okay, so I'm seeing some people in the AimHi side saying, does it mean being better than anyone else? So our role models are very important, right? Because they influence this. And I'm seeing other people on AimHi saying to outcompete a competitor. Nowadays, most of us are taught that to win is to dominate. A winning company is one that grows rapidly and overpowers all the competition to monopolize the sector and beyond, right? Why is this? We can easily see from nature that this is ridiculous. Whenever one thing dominates, things start to go wrong and all other living things suffer, and eventually so does the thing that dominated too. Perhaps we should learn from nature and teach one another that to win is to become a valued part of the community or ecosystem. Nobody wins if the Earth loses. Anyway, right, let's go back to TV and science content related things. So speaking of winning, how do we judge if a TV program or an online video was a good one? So, if we had two different videos and one of them had 1 million views and another one had 10 million views, which was the better show, right? What do you think? I mean, I know I'm obviously only telling you this, so you're probably going to think 10 million because it's the only thing you've got to go on. But still, that is the main thing that people often look at, right? We love to use simple summary metrics for things, and once we've decided upon them, we are remarkably good at optimizing for them. We organize very effectively around them as simple, unifying goals. Now, another good example of this is carrots. For many decades, we've optimized for the yield of our crops, and the consequence is that vegetables in supermarkets are now really big. These carrots are quite chubby these days. However, we're now realizing that this has had an enormously negative impact on the healthiness of our food. So, for example, the vitamin content in a carrot, I was going to ask you what you thought, but I'll run out of time if I spend too much time on this. But the vitamin content in a carrot is now 80% lower than it was 100 years ago. because of our obsessions with optimizing for the yield. The overarching kind of guiding aim was never perfectly representative of what humans wanted or needed, and taking it too far has resulted in quite a bad outcome. So like back to TV programs, it's very clear that without creative vision and intelligent, decisive leadership, TV will increasingly seek to satisfy the lowest common denominator, and the same thing will happen on social media, right? To get as many viewers as possible, and gradually it will ultimately lose more and more people as we lose the kind of vision. On social media, it's perhaps even worse. So completely and utterly controlled as it is by the lowest common denominator of just people kind of watching. And in this kind of endless drive for likes and viewers, what will get more views of these things? Will we get more views from a high quality, well-written, well-communicated, visually interesting mini-series about soil, hinging around there being more living things in a teaspoon of it than there are humans on Earth? Or will we get more views from a picture of a dog riding a horse on Instagram, or a video of young people dancing on TikTok? The answer is quite obvious, right? Anyway, I need to get on with the competition, so I'll start accelerating, but I will finish this finish what I'm saying about social media. We all know it. Social media companies now control most of the world's attention. Their pursuit of greater advertising revenues has led to them designing algorithms that create this kind of dopamine releasing echo chambers for all of us. These virtual bubbles that entertain us rather than educating and challenging us, confirming our opinions and our views, and consistently creating the impression that most people agree with us. This is the world we're all entering into as we try to make quality, factual, digital content. What's worse, I suppose, is that for as long as we don't occupy this space, the void is filled with potentially sinister people and organizations using online advertising to spread misinformation, fake news, propaganda. Some of these places have even succeeded in convincing large numbers of people that their fake news is the only news that isn't fake. Who here thinks it's scary that it's now become so reasonable to get so much of our news through images and videos circulated on messaging platforms? And who thinks it's scary that the opinions of celebrity influencers form most of what people absorb online? And I'm just thinking that Melanie's commenting about how spinach and broccoli are all significantly down in their vitamin content as well. Yes, indeed, Melanie. Okay, getting a lot of people saying yes on both sides. To add to this, there's an ongoing erosion of trust in academic institutions and universities because certain political organizations have realized they can gain advantages by sowing doubt about how trustworthy researchers and scientists are. In 2020, science has become an opinion. It used to be possible to disseminate key knowledge via things like the BBC, and almost everyone would see it. And if not, they'd at least talk about it. And now everyone's cultural and experiential worlds are becoming highly separated and isolated in an avalanche of content and media, favoured by the business model of social media giants. And amidst it all, no one can hear and discover the simple and important truths. As scientists discover more than has ever been known before, humanity is becoming more and more separated from understanding these truths. Of all the times in history, those who are informed and those who can reach people have a vital duty to be teachers of the truth. Whilst many of you watching this at big organisations like the BBC, NHK, PBS and so on might be apprehensive about the digital short-form space, it's so important that we all enter this head-on, united in trying to shape it for the better. Perhaps the role of the World Congress of Science and Factual Producers community should be as much about trying to reshape the content of this absurd space as it is about lobbying these huge social media giants to properly curate quality. Rather than just going with the flow of it, we have to change it or we'll be constantly losing ground. The cultural influence over society is no longer thinkers, as you saw before, and we can't kid ourselves that it's moving in any other direction right now. So thank you for being the people who can address this, and please play a part in doing so. We all must. I had a few key tips on this, but maybe we've got time. Yeah, I think we've maybe got time. So I know that I'm not at all the most experienced person in the space, nor the best place to give all the best tips, but here are just some of my kind of key thoughts on this as a thing. So number one, we need to get better at working across ages, and I need to get better at doing this as well. Like young people know a lot about social media, and older people have a huge amount of experience in content production, and there's always a tension there, but out of that tension can come the best work. Number two, don't be deceived by huge followings. There ought to be an understanding that a large following breeds a large following, and this is why a lot of the people with enormous followings aren't actually that good at what they do. It's better to look at those with smaller followings who still manage to get a lot of traction with a dedicated audience. So Congress's Trace Dominguez and Sam Yamin are both great examples, and friends of AimHi like Josie Peters, Sarah Pearson, Sally Waring are all great too. Number three is that vision is key for avoiding ongoing erosion of quality. Don't go purely off numbers of views or followers. These things are highly arbitrary in the online space especially, and using these numbers as sole metrics is as bad and crude as selling crude oil as a fuel just because it's profitable to do so. And number four, as I said before, we must lobby for change. Platforms like YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and so on, we need to get them pushing high quality content around recognizable, trustworthy brands like BBC, NHK, Arte, ZDF, all the good ones, and lobby those trustworthy brands to elevate the great thinker role models more effectively than they currently are doing. Right, okay, let's get going with the competition. So, to contextualize this, I'm going to show something I made as a really short piece of content for TikTok. This was really designed just to get people interested in their own biology, and it had over 1 million views in just a couple of days. And without kind of an established brand like the BBC or something behind it, it can be difficult to grab people's attention and hold it and get people to share things. And this is why you might find this a little crude, but hopefully you'll appreciate it as a fun piece that educates and reaches well beyond the normal science audience as it did. Like almost all of my videos of this kind, it was done on a zero budget with the kindness of friends. I was on this boat thanks to the Plastic Oceans Foundation, who encouraged the owners to give me a spot so I could make a short film about plastic pollution, which never had anywhere near the visibility that this did. Anyway, here we go.
So, you're at sea. You got very little with you. Some might say nothing. There's no land in sight. You're alone. You're thirsty. No one knows where you are. And night is closing in. Don't panic. You may be in mortal danger, but you have your wits about you. And the sea is pleasingly warm, so you're probably not going to die of cold. How do you stay alive for as long as possible? On average, every human being ends up in this situation at least once in her or his lifetime, so pay attention. If you drink the seawater, you'll die faster. Water moves from less salty places to more salty places, and your blood isn't very salty. So if there's seawater in your intestine, the water will move out of your blood and into your intestine, blessing you with diarrhea and dehydration. To make matters worse, your blood will absorb loads of the salt. And then to try to get rid of it, your body will create a load more urine, which requires water to make. More water than was in the seawater that you drank to begin with, and so you'll get even more dehydrated. But wait, remember, your large intestine is specialised at drawing water into your blood, even if the water is trying to move in the opposite direction, and it's not very permeable to salt. This means that if you can get the seawater into your bumhole and squirt it up into your large intestine, a saltwater enema, then your large intestine can absorb the water without absorbing too much of the salt, keeping you healthily hydrated. The Vikings used to do this. I don't know how they discovered it. Perseverance, I guess. Thanks for watching. Spread the knowledge and deliciously subscribe for more.
Anyway, this was slightly edited down for TikTok, but more or less as it is. This is the kind of thing that takes off on that platform. Part of our challenge is taking formats like that and turning it into communicating the most important things that actually really, really matter. But more importantly, we have to work with those platforms, trying to transform them by lobbying for less immediately engaging perhaps, but quality, important content to be given the visibility it deserves and needs, rather than just allowing them to go with the views and the likes. So yeah, the internet is full of all the videos we need to explain things like the climate and nature crisis to the whole world already. The problem isn't necessarily making more of them. A lot of it is about finding and getting them to people. and helping to support the people who are doing them. Maybe you watching could be someone who can move the dial on this, and I'm sure there are many people watching who could. So this year's Science in 60 Seconds, we had entries from all over the world, and this year they were mainly from very early career science communicators working with very low or often zero budgets. So judging has been done on the basis of how well information is communicated in 60 seconds, how engaging the videos are, how interesting, and with considerations for the challenges that video makers might be faced with too. So we have for you today 2 runners-up and a winner. These were the best of this year's submissions. So runner-up number 1 was Anton Petrov, living in South Korea, who did Rings in Space. And runner-up number 2 is Michelle Wong, living in Australia. So I will show you their 2 films now.
Hello, wonderful person. You probably knew that Saturn has rings. But did you know other planets have rings? Here are the rings from Uranus. Here are the rings from Neptune. Here are the rings from something else that seems to be kind of weird, but is actually an asteroid known as Chiron. But here are the rings from something a little bit more unusual. The largest rings in the universe. J1407b is the name of this object, and I guess it's sort of like the Lord of the Rings. Welcome to this unusual planet. So far, this is a record holder. And these rings are, like, really, really, really big. How big? Well, if you were in an airplane trying to fly through these, it would take you about 12 years to go from one end to another. That would be a pretty long flight. Imagine all of the air miles you would collect. Well, that's kind of it. J1407b. Hopefully, it'll have a name soon.
Alpha-hydroxy acids, or AHAs, are some of the most popular skincare ingredients. They're chemical exfoliants that help your dead skin cells shed so you get smoother, brighter skin. And sometimes they can have really dramatic results. You might have heard that they work better at a lower pH, but what does that mean and how does it work? Low pH means acidic, and that means there are a lot of hydrogen ions floating around. Alpha-hydroxy acids come in 2 forms, intact and ionized, and these can turn into each other. The intact form likes oil, the ionized form doesn't. Skin is quite oily, so the intact version gets through skin more easily. So for an AHA product to work effectively, you need to have enough of the intact version around. To turn the ionized version into the intact version, it needs to bump into a H+ ion. So when you have a low pH in your AHA product, there's a lot more H+ floating around, so the chance of this happening is a lot higher. And more intact AHA means more of it can get into your skin and do its job.
Now, I think these 2 show like a great deal of promise. So the first one I think shows a lot of character, and it's the kind of thing that could be lifted a lot with a lot of good, with more production and support from Anton, and the second one from Michelle. I think it shows a great understanding of the science and the ways to communicate it, and I think with help kind of pitching it to the right kind of levels, it could really it's the kind of way of communicating that I think could really reach people effectively. I really liked the idea of maybe the proton could be like a hat, like a secret agent hat that could allow the acid to sneak through the layer of oil myself. But anyway, this is why we need to collaborate. And a lot of science communicators, work by ourselves to try and create these kinds of things and make the kind of work that we make. So yes, congratulations to those 2. And finally, the winner of this year's Science in 60 Seconds is Alexei Sorokin, who's 23 years old and from the Ukraine. I thought it was fun, attractively visual. It brought us into a world many of us don't think much about. It sparked curiosity, and it taught us some new things. So I will show you that now.
Одни из самых древних жителей нашей планеты – улитки. Они могут адаптироваться к любой среде, не требуют много пищи и распространены по всему земному шару. Медлительные создания далеко не глупы. Как показали исследования, они могут принимать самостоятельные решения, основываясь на своем жизненном опыте. У них очень плохое зрение. Они лишь научились отличать день от ночи, но в процессе жизнедеятельности этого вполне достаточно. Практически у всех видов отсутствует слух, так что они ничего не слышат, да и сами не производят никаких звуков. Между собой особи общаются прикосновением, что выглядит очень романтично.
So thanks for coming to this session. I know that it's only got a few seconds remaining, so just to say, please do check out the World Congress of Science and Factual Producers if you're watching from AimHi. And likewise, if you are watching from World Congress, then do check out our Nature First, curiosity-powered online school on a mission to make world-class live learning accessible for all. We have some great guests coming up even this week, actually, including Jojo Mehta, who is the founder of the Stop Ecocide campaign, Sam Lee, the folk singer and founder of No Music on a Dead Planet, which is famously supported by the likes of Billie Eilish, and many more. We're also about to launch AimHi tutoring, connecting learners with top tutors for the price of a cup of coffee. So do follow our socials and do also join the AimHi community mailing list, again, at the bottom of our website if you haven't already. And if you're at the World Congress of Science and Factual Producers, do enjoy the rest of it. I'll be on there as well if you would like to send me a message. Thanks so much, everyone. Farewell.